This question has always been at the back of my head since I saw a comment comparing the RX 5300 to the GTX 1063 gig.
If you got a problem, just give me a ring. I'll fix it with my speed. You get the hero guarantee, the one you can trust. With heavy drops in it and heroes in the house, and we don't quit.
At first glance, this is a reasonable comparison. Even to me, what took this video so long was mostly getting my hands on a 1063GB. They are plentiful, but I didn't feel like spending too much money on one, you know? With that out of the way, let's look at both these cards. Now let's start with something that we find a bit more familiar. Launched in August 2016 with an MSRP of $199 USD, this card was supposed to be the budget version of the 1066, except the VRAM wasn't the only thing that was cut down, but still performed better than the 1050 Ti, regardless of having a bit less VRAM. As mentioned a moment ago, it had 3 gigs of VRAM, and at the time of 2016 was, well, reasonable, where most of the games at the time used up at 4 at most, and 2 was plenty for most free and esports games. Now for the basics, it has a base clock of 1506 MHz with a boost clock of 1708 MHz with a memory clock of 2002 MHz on a 192 memory bit bus. It has a TDP of 120 watts and Nvidia recommends a 300 watt power supply, which sounds right as long as there's the right connectors for it. This card today is specifically the MSI version of this card, a dual fan design with tasteful white accents. The cooling solution is pretty standard and no backplate, but I really wouldn't expect a backplate for a 1063 gig. Now we move on to the less known card, as this was never sold as a standalone product. It came bundled as an OEM option in pre-built PCs, typically in Dell gaming pre-builts. Amazingly, this card is on the RDNA 1 architecture, which makes it reasonably more newer than Pascal. Launched, in quotations by the way, in May 2020 with an MSRP of 129 USD. Now this card only came in 3 gigs, and if you wanted more, you would have to go buy a RX 5500 XT for 4 or 8 gigs. Anyway, the basics for this card would be 1327 MHz for its base clock, a boost clock of 1645 MHz, with a memory clock of 1750 MHz, all on a 96 memory bit bus. It does the job. The TDP of this guy is 100 watts, and AMD recommends a 300 watt power supply. Again, a reasonable choice, and as long as it has the 1x6 pin power connector. From the looks of this card, there isn't anything special. It only comes in one flavor, a short single fan card, which can fit in most ITX cases no problem. No backplate or anything. Honestly, I like the simplicity of this card. At a glance, both cards seem very similar, both performing in that low-medium range, but still need additional power, which I honestly think the 5300 could have been supplemented by just a PCIe slot itself. Comparing clock speeds isn't too important here, as the 1060 does boost and run higher, but not too much, and is a good 4 years older than the RX 5300. Speaking of age, the RX 5300 is also on a semi-modern architecture that still has some time left on it, being RDNA 1. I think AMD won't be dropping it soon. With that said, Nvidia is planning to soon stop doing game-ready drivers for Maxwell, Pascal, and the Volta architectures, so 900, 1000, and some titans after are on the chopping block in the near future. Like always, we'll be testing this card on the 2025 budget bench. The MSI Mag B550 Gaming Plus motherboard, a Ryzen 5 5600 with 16 gigs at 3200 MHz. For the synthetic benchmarks, on 3D Mark, GTX 1060 3GB gets a Firestrike score of 11,245, a TimeSpy score of 4,243, and the RX 5300. Firestrike gets 11,027, and TimeSpy gets 4,447. Looking at the synthetics real fast, it looks like the 5300 does better on DX12 tasks, and the 1060 seems to be at home doing DX11 tasks. But these are synthetics, only to give a quick comparison at face value. Now for the gaming benchmarks. Hey guys, before we start the video, I need to make some money, and with that said, check out Poggers at poggerslifestyle.com, a fun brand featuring everyone's favorite Pepe Frog, offering worldwide shipping and is family ran and operated. You can get their flavors for energy or simply just hydration from things like watermelon, mango, and raspberry, or even that American classic Rocket Pop. Yes, just like the popsicle. They also include a few options to help sleep. Hopefully they bring back a personal favorite flavor of mine, Cream Dream. It's orange, guys. Don't make it weird. You can also get Poggers brand shakers and even bundle deals at a great price. Anyway, use my affiliate link down below or use code POGHERO at checkout to save 10% off your order. So live that Poggers lifestyle. So let's get on with the video. Shadow of the Tomb Raider represents an older AAA title and plays well on these cards. I had this on DX12, and the RX 5300 edges out the 1060 this time with a 62 FPS average, compared to the 1060's 57 FPS average. A rough 8.4 difference. Though nothing most people wouldn't notice during gameplay. I had a feeling the 1060 would get a few more frames at DX11, but I didn't find it that pressing to find out. Now with Cyberpunk representing a relevant modern AAA title, now I benchmarked this at medium because I know neither card couldn't handle high, and I like to bench games at settings that I would be comfortable playing with. So at native resolutions, the 1060 gets about 34 average FPS, while the 5300 gets a 41 FPS average. We're starting to see a trend on who is outperforming who. 18.6% is a wider gap, as Cyberpunk really likes newer architectures. For fun, and if you would like your frames not to drop below 30 for its 1% lows, and if you don't mind the usual upscaling mess, with quality FSR2, yes 2 because I keep forgetting to switch it to 3, the 1060 average went to 47 FPS average, and the RX 53 gets a 58 FPS average, with 34 and 43 FPS with their 1% lows, respectively. Now for Forza Horizon 5, which is a modern game that is well optimized for the most part. The 1060 gets 79 FPS average, while the 5300 takes its first loss today, just barely at 76 FPS. A 3.8% difference, so not too much. Also, I finally realized the difference between TAA and MSA by 2, which TAA bumping the average down to 62 FPS on the 5300. The reason why I know this is that I forgot to double check my settings before benchmarking, and I knew something fell off when I finished. So I had to do it again. I'm going to sound a little bit different. I recorded this after I did my first initial recording, but between that and now I managed to get sick, so I'm going to sound a little bit different. Counter-Strike 2 will be the test to represent esports titles, Both these cards definitely can play this game, so I test this game at high, even if most people will play it in more competitive settings. So the 1063 gig will play at 119 FPS, and the RX 5300 will play at 118 FPS, so less than a 1% difference. 0.84% to be exact. The 1% lowest for the 1060 is higher though, at 70 FPS, and the 5300 is 58 FPS, but either plays fine. So both these guys can definitely play games like Valorant, Snova, etc. With this, we get a truly decisive victory in the name of AMD and the RX 5300. The 1060 got a whopping 6 FPS. The 5300 on the other hand got 23 FPS, which is 117% better. This is further proof that Pascal and older are falling behind, and that devs aren't even considering them anymore. The 1063 gig, no matter what I didn't want to improve too much. The best getting 15 to 20 FPS with stutter. After lowering the resolution, increasing the upscaling more and more, it was just a mess. Imagine trying to game while being bombarded with a swarm of bees. Anyway, with that said, the 5300 with just performance is okay. It's passable if you think toast is okay for breakfast. Now with frame gen, that toast becomes buttered toast, or even jam and toast, as it's, well, adequate. It usually keeps everything past 30 FPS at almost all times, and you don't feel like bees are swarming you. TLDR, the 5300 wins. For the most part, it will outperform the 1063 gig. It's on a newer architecture and just a newer card in general. It will still be supported in the near future and straight up outperform the 1063 gig. It really has only one flaw. You can't fucking find these things. These cards are very uncommon and only were sold in Dell OEM pre-builts. A definition of a hidden gem, if I should say. As the 1063 gig are just about everywhere. You can find these no problem, but at this point, if you're aiming for a 1060, just get the 6 gig card, as you're not spending too much for those. So in conclusion, get an RX 5500 or newer, except the 6500. That's a piece of shit card right there. So let me know if you have used any of these parts below. I'm ManHero, something of a virtual YouTuber myself. Thumbs up if you like it, and thumbs down if you don't like it, or just hate me. Subscribe for more, or if you're just masochistic. See you next time. Bye bye.
That platinum chain with them diamonds in it. Where'd you get that magnet Benz with them windows tinted? Who them girls you be with when you be riding through? Man, I ain't got nothing to prove. I paid my dues, breaking the rules and shake fools while I'm taking the cruise. Tell me who's your weed man and how do you smoke so good? You's a superstar, boy. Why you still up in the hood? What in the world is in that bag? What you got in that bag? A couple of cans of whoop ass. You did a good ass job of just eyeing me, spying me. I got my Glock 40.